Another edition of the weekly member spotlight. I am Charles Kelly and I will be today's host. All of you are probably wondering, where is Melissa and what have we done with her? Melissa has a conflict today. Obviously, I have big shoes to fill, but we'll try my best at doing so. Our guest today is Ann Padgett. Ann is the Vice President of Field Marketing for ePremium Insurance Agency. Many of you may know Ann since she is an active member of the GCNKAA, along with being an active member of the National Apartment Association. She has served on many committees, including the GCNKAA Social Media Committee, which we are both currently a part of. And as we were speaking about before our session here, we've been looking forward to today because we've been seeing each other for quite some time at countless events, both on a statewide association basis and through NAA, but don't really know much about you and each other. So with that, Ann, thank you for joining us today. First things first, please tell us how you got into the industry and when or how you first became a member of the GCNKAA.
Okay, thank you. Good morning or good afternoon. All good questions. You're right. We've known each other a little while. I've been in the multifamily industry now 20 years, just started my 21st year. How I got in it, I had a friend from college who had a brother who was looking to hire a web designer. I was a recent college graduate with a degree in new media, focus on web design. And I was currently working in a print job, which was, it was a job out of college using my education, but it wasn't my favorite. So I said, will you introduce me to your brother, right? And I had the application, the interview, all that good stuff, landed that job. That took me to Bloomington, Indiana, where I worked for a company called Resite IT. And we were building websites for apartment communities and management companies of apartment communities. So let's see, I built thousands of those websites, a lot in Indiana and surrounding areas, as our sales team started, from there and worked their way out. Did that for almost 12 years. And that job took me to Virginia. I moved to Norfolk, Virginia about 6 years into it, I think. I went through 2 acquisitions, a merger, and a relocation to Virginia. That is probably when I got to meet you along the way. At some point in time, I started working on NAA committees out of Region 1. And then a few years into that, I took a job with ePremium Insurance Agency, and they were in Cincinnati, Ohio. So they moved me here to Cincinnati. And then a few years into that job, we went through sort of a merger and acquisition with a company called Property Brands. And Property Brands has over time rebranded to Inhabit. So my current job as VP of Field Marketing for the residential division of Inhabit, and ePremium is one of my main brands that I'm working with. And so I still live here in Cincinnati and work a lot of times at home, but sometimes out of their office. And then I also travel to a lot of events and things. So moved to Cincinnati. It's been 9 years, I'd say. So about 11 and a half, 12 years with Resite, and then the last 9 with ePremium and Inhabit. And I really do like the Cincinnati area. Right now is fall. We have gorgeous weather. It got a little chillier today, but we've got the turning leaves and we've got sunshine, all that good stuff. So the people of Cincinnati have been very nice to me since I've moved here.
Well, it's an incredible city, and if you could, please send some of that cooler air east to New York, because it's still 75 and humid here on October 6th. And at this point, even though I'm a summer baby and I love the warm weather, it's time for a little bit of a transition. To backtrack to your background, it's incredible how so many of us in the industry really had no initial intention of seeking out this industry. And now there's various universities with programs that are geared to property management and real estate. But how these connections and this winding journey, like yours, are continuing to be so prevalent, with the younger generation or established professionals that are making their way into the industry. And you mentioned that you are overseeing various brands within Inhabit, along with ePremium. What other companies or solutions, for lack of a better term, are you also overseeing the marketing efforts for?
Yeah. Within our organization, within the residential space, we really have four brands we go to market with. ePremium is one of them. Another brand we go to market with is Resident IQ, and that's one that I work a lot with. Resident IQ is a suite of technology solutions that work with different property management software platforms. So it's a little bit of the power of choice. It helps people fill technology gaps in places that, maybe they love the platform that they're on, but they'd like to add a couple of features that the platform maybe isn't offering, or function a little bit differently than what they're offering. And that's where Resident IQ kind of fills in a lot of those gaps. So we have lots of different things from payments and resident messaging, utility billing. There's screening, there's learning management, there's websites and CRM, all sorts of different products that all sort of work along with the platforms. So another brand that we own is one of those platforms, ResMan. So all of our products do work with ResMan, but we also work with some of the other platforms out there in the market space. Yardi, RealPage, locally Rent Manager is headquartered here as well. So that's sort of what Resident IQ focuses on, is helping fill those gaps with all the other platforms. Inhabit also has a vacation rental division. So what I focus on is the multifamily, or the residential division, we call it. But they do have a vacation rental that helps with some of those short-term rentals or those Airbnb kind of things, property types. But everything we do is software-based. And I would say that's one, in my career, to your point earlier about sort of falling into multifamily, it's very true, but I didn't fall into the tech space. That is where my degree comes into play. I have not been on the operations side of multifamily, where sometimes you see a lot of the suppliers or our associate council members have been on both sides of that aisle. I've not had that experience. But I've had a lot of different experiences with software. So on the insurance side at ePremium, we're sort of a blend of insurance and software. And that was sort of how I got attracted to it to start with, because some people were like, how did you end up at ePremium? That seems confusing. But it is a software-based platform that they use to run all of their insurance products. And that's sort of how I joined the team, was from that angle.
It's a diverse and well-rounded ecosystem that has these solutions for your partners, whether it's real estate companies or the software companies, aside from ResMan, those others that you have the ability to communicate with. And you mentioned your degree is in technology. What is the degree exactly, and where did you go to school?
Oh, good question. Well, I went to a couple of schools. I started, I'm from Indiana, so I started at Ball State University, which is where I met my husband. But I graduated, I transferred schools about 2 years in. So I transferred to Indiana University, Purdue University of Indianapolis. So we call it IUPUI. And my degree was from Indian. Well, actually on the billboard, why not both, to be honest. My bachelor's degree was from Indiana University. I have a degree in new media, or media arts and science, they called it. So new media was, or is, sort of the convergence of art and technology. So I was learning graphic design, web design, 2D, 3D animation, audio editing, sort of all of that variety of mixed mediums. And then I got a minor from Purdue University in web development. So I basically specialized in the web side of the mediums. So a lot of people get confused because my first job in the industry was in Bloomington, Indiana, and I actually did not graduate from the Bloomington campus. My degree program at the time wasn't offered in the Bloomington campus. It was only offered at the Indianapolis campus. I think Indianapolis, I graduated in the year 2002. So Indianapolis was trying to build itself as a tech hub. They had an Internet 2 hub underneath them, which is sort of the internet that like the military and the government, some of that is using, not to be confusing with the normal internet, but that we're all using right now. But yeah, that's how I got to Indianapolis.
And with your journey, not just from an academic standpoint, but once you really establish yourself in the industry, what has been, the best part, since you joined ePremium, and how that's evolved into a much bigger, and I'll use the phrase again, ecosystem. So what's been the best part of that journey, and the most challenging part presently, and then going forward, that you and your team are facing, or are projecting to face?
For me, some of the rewarding parts have been once I started getting more involved on committees, getting more involved in the health of the industry, right? Versus just sort of being on the sidelines or being part of it, but not being as engaged. One of the things I've been passionate about, especially since I've been in Cincinnati, is the Next Gen program. I was at the NAA level before it was Next Gen was a committee, it was a task force. And I really believe in building the future of our industry. And I do think it's been a great industry for me in the 20 years that I have been here. Some of the industries that my friends from college have gone into haven't been maybe as stable as our, we have ups and downs right now. Our industry is fighting a lot of legislative issues, and the post-pandemic maybe view of our industry from some in the press or the media or society has always been so positive. And at the same time, though, from an employment perspective, it's been a pretty stable industry. That housing isn't a need that everyone has, and multifamily fills a very important portion of that housing across this country. So that it keeps a lot of people employed, is really my point. So I think that has been good. And the Next Gen program I have a lot of passion about it. I have helped build the Next Gen program currently in Cincinnati. And so a lot of people who are watching this today probably know me from the Next Gen activities that we do. We like to host events. We move them across this, to your point earlier about people and parking and being able to walk. We try to move our events across the city into different locations to make it more convenient for different people at different times of the year. But it's been really fun getting to know, in my current position, I'm maybe not as close to the customers as I have been in past positions. So it allows me, that ability to still connect with people, and still stay engaged and keep learning, because things change all the time. What's hot or what's an issue, or, legislatively or whatever, things have been different. And post-pandemic is certainly different, right? We had those 2 years where trade shows came to a pause, which was very strange for someone like me. And now we are right back to full. I feel like I'm almost busier than what I was in 2019 before this all happened. So it's really, it's the people, it's those relationships that keep me here, because that makes it so much fun. And thinking about all the problems we help solve and all the people that we help house. I really do appreciate being a part of this industry versus choosing to be a part of, another industry, for instance.
I couldn't agree more. You know, serving on committees has been so valuable, you know, for myself, and something that when I joined the industry was recommended, you know, by colleagues as well as suppliers that I met, you know, through statewide associations and on a national level through NAA. And you know, as you know, your career has evolved, it's nice that you know you're continuing to make that time and serve on those committees. You know, not only you know to have that human interaction and continue to establish or bolster those relationships, but also to make a difference. And with regard to next gen, I know from an NAA standpoint that committee continues to grow, and they had a really nice turnout for their committee meeting in Atlanta in June for compartmentalizing, and I'm sure that'll continue to grow as we quickly approach AOD and then into next year with their upcoming events. With regard to the GCNKAA, what is your favorite aspect of the association and the event or events that you most look forward to each and every year?
Great question. I've probably said it a few times. GCNKAA, I've been a member of many associations. One of the things I really like about this one is goes back to the people, the way they organize things. We have membership meetings and dinner meetings at least 4 times a year. So it gives us an opportunity to get together and be connected. It's not always purposely, it's not because we're all sitting there listening to a speaker talk for 2 hours or walking a trade show floor. It's really just sort of about those more genuine connections at dinner and a little bit of, report that we get from a speaker. So I enjoy those moments. They also tend to have a lot of live music at their events, which other associations may have a DJ, but this one often usually has real musicians. I like live music. I married a musician, so that speaks to that part of my heart. The other thing is, since I've been in Cincinnati, I guess I should mention I am on the Associates Council. I have served 1 2-year term and 1 1-year term. So I'm just completing my 3rd year on the Associates Council. And I guess a little plug for that, I am up for election, and we are doing the elections in about 2 weeks here in Cincinnati. And the Associates Council, when I first joined, I wasn't really sure what the goal or the purpose of the Associates Council was. I've been a member of NSC for a very long time, which is the National Suppliers Council. And this local Associates Council is a little bit like that, but on the local side, right? And they are responsible for certain events throughout the year as a whole. They create the trade show, the business exchange, they run 2 golf outings, and they help with the holiday cheers, which is part of our Cincinnati's Association 5013C, the charitable side. They overlap with a little bit of that by helping with the auction to drive donations. So that has been a lot of fun, getting more involved in some of learning about how all that works. And obviously the council doesn't do everything themselves. They're there to assist the association staff, James and Michelle and Rebecca and everybody at the GCNKA works very hard for us. So we just sort of help with the planning and guiding and answering questions and giving suggestions and ideas. And then also volunteering to help on those days when needed. So that has been a lot of fun to get to understand that side of the association and trying to come up with plans that, on the associates side, I think some of our challenges are that right now the property managers and owners, they have a lot of different things they're focused on. Legislative has been a huge topic. There have been staffing and retaining talent challenges post-pandemic, right? And I feel like they're a little more distracted than maybe they were 10 to 15 years ago. And I feel like it's a little harder right now to make those relationships with new companies. And so I I enjoy being on the Associates Council, being able to see the effort that they put into trying to make better, I would say, networking opportunities for their supplier members to take advantage of. So that has been interesting. Which kind of ties into, I'm also this year at the NSC, I had the pleasure of being a officer at large on the executive committee. So I currently assist Mindy, who is the chair of membership. And so I'm helping with the membership task force on the NSC side. So right now, let's say every supplier that is a member of GCNKAA is also a member of NAA, but not every supplier is a member of the NSC. So NSC are suppliers that have sort of raised their hand saying we are selling on the national level, right? There are only right now, let's say 230 some members of the NSC, but there are some maybe 10,000 supplier members of NAA, right? So it's a very small percentage that join the NSC, and we're trying to figure out why that is. Especially when you look at apartmentalized, let's say there were, gosh, at least over 600 companies exhibiting. There were a lot more than that number of trade show booths. Some companies had more than one booth, right? But there were a lot of companies, and still only maybe a third or a fourth of them are NSC members. So really diving into why that is, what we can do to improve that experience and those membership benefits. And being on the Associates Council locally really helps me get some insight into that gap. Because I think one of the big gaps is there's actually no connection between the two. So in Cincinnati, on our Associates Council, we do take time during our meetings to mention anything happening with NAA or NSC, but not all of them do that because there's, it's not a requirement per se, right? So at the NSC level, they are starting to have some webinars, but they're calling chair chats to bring more of those people in to make sure everyone has all the information. And so I'm hoping to see, a little bit more uptick in that direction too, because I think that strengthens the supplier side of our industry, which just helps strengthen the industry.
Absolutely. The chair chats have been really well received. And I know they have been trying to make those connections on a local level, so all members are aware of these resources, and that this industry is a lot more than it may seem, where there is growth from a professional and personal standpoint. And I'm glad that you mentioned the upcoming meeting, not only for your election aspirations, but also to give the association a shameless plug that it's coming up on October 17th, and the staff with GCNKAA really drives all of these efforts, and we're happy to help fill in those gaps any way possible. But if there was a way to express our appreciation, I don't think we do it enough, because really they're working around the clock tirelessly, and also being involved from a national standpoint, since I know the staff has attended the NAA events, which helps to your point with making those connections.
Yeah.
From a personal standpoint, you mentioned your husband is a musician. What does he play, and what type of genre?
Jazz. Well, he plays guitar. His main focus, I would say, is jazz. He does a little classical as well. Yeah. I met him.
And how about yourself?
Guitar.
Oh, I'm sorry?
I met him while he was playing his guitar. And he plays a lot for me at home. I get serenaded quite often.
Amazing. And where did you meet?
We met in a restaurant in Muncie, Indiana called Vera Mae's Bistro. It, at the time, and for many years until very, very recently, was owned by my best friend's brother. I helped open the restaurant. At first we catered out of the restaurant before we got to open, and then he expanded probably about the time I moved to Indianapolis. But that is where I met my husband. We hired him to play solo guitar on Friday nights, and he sat in the corner. And he required a lot of water. He kept asking me for water all night long. Like, don't you see I have tables here? But yeah, it probably took, I don't know, 3 or 4 months of him performing there before he ever asked me out on a date. But it all started there. Mhm.
Very nice. And how about yourself? Are you a musician as well?
I would not say that, although, I did play flute in junior high and high school. I was also in the color guard when I was in high school. I did a little cheerleading in junior high, but color guard was my passion, and dance. I did color guard all through high school. I was captain for 3 years. I taught high school color guard for 2 or 3 years after I graduated. So when I was at Ball State, a lot of those months were filled with me teaching and things like that as well. When I moved to Indianapolis, I worked in restaurants to make a living, but I also worked for Arthur Murray Dance Studio for a little while, taught social ballroom dances. So I was the young person on staff at the time, so I got to teach a lot of the wedding couples. So if you came into the Broad Ripple Arthur Murray studio with your significant other to learn how to waltz or rumba or anything before your wedding, you likely had me as your instructor. So I did that for 2 or 3 years before I graduated, and then took that job in print that I mentioned. So that is sort of my passion. And I think a lot of the event and trade show things that I do blend some of that background of performing and serving in restaurants, catering, all of that I did, all kind of did tee up a little bit of what I'm doing currently in my job. But that would be probably where most of my passions come from.
And I couldn't agree more. There's a lot of blend there, from a hospitality standpoint that carries over well in our industry, because all parties, in my opinion, are in the customer service industry, have that mindset, where I know a lot of individuals, including yourself, that came from the hospitality industry, and some of my colleagues, have made that transition, and it is a seamless one, because they have that mentality to learn and to serve, and also better understand how the customer, in this case, whomever that may be, can really benefit and grow from whatever solution that you're implementing or offering them.
Mm-hmm. Serving is probably a big word. I think that's the leadership mentality I take, is some of that servant mentality. I do think of myself as a hard worker and a dedicated worker, and that's, I think, where a lot of that comes from. And I think marching band plays into that too. It's very much a team effort. You have to have individual good performances, but you have to blend with the group at the same time. Responsible to other people. You can't skip, you can't be late, all those things definitely set me up for the success I think I've had in my career so far, and hopefully, future success as well.
Absolutely. And with, that and drawing from your own experience, for a person that is a recent grad or may be changing industries, what would you encourage them to do if they were considering joining the industry, or specifically the GCNKAA?
I think whether you're coming into our industry, which I hope you are, because I think it's a very, like I said, a healthy, welcoming industry. I think it's always a little nerve-wracking for anyone to do something new, to go outside their comfort zone, but you get so much growth by doing that. There have been plenty of times in my career, or people to this day, that will tell you stories. Oh, the first time I met Anne, she was sort of like in the back of the room up against the wall. I didn't know who she was. She didn't look like she knew anybody, right? So if I would have let that anxiety prevent me from walking into that room, I would never get to where I am now. So every day is just one step, one thing, meet one person. It's very easy to go to, I have a lot of friends across the country. It's very easy for me to go to these meetings and only talk to those people, right? But I never would have met those people if I wouldn't have talked to people I didn't know to start with. So it's all about making sure you're inclusive, being comfortable, being confident, trying new things. If you're not the new person in the room and you see someone you don't know, making sure that you try to be, extend that olive branch, right? Introduce yourself to them, make them feel more welcoming. So I think that is a lot of what it takes to just keep it going, right? Every day, if you're in sales, for instance, they tell you, you'll get 100 no's before you get one yes. So I think even if you're, a new leasing consultant and, you kind of like your job, you've been having some fun, you're interested in, just exploring what a career path would look like for you in 20 years. For some people, it follows a natural progression, but for others, it doesn't, right? And there are lots of different directions that anyone who is new to multifamily could go to it, whether you're on the corporate side, the supplier side, or on site at the property. Your career path could take you lots of directions. It could also take you lots of places. It may be in Cincinnati, it may be out of Cincinnati. At some point in your life, our lives, we may want something different. Right now, I'm not taking so many vacations. I travel a lot for work. I'm enjoying my downtime at home, right? But there was a different stage in my life where I was wanting something else. I was always looking for the next. I've been to Europe and done some of those things. So I think at each stage of our life, we want something a little bit different. I think we should be willing to allow ourselves a little bit of flexibility. And I think that this industry, the residential, the real estate, the multifamily side, just offers so many potentials for people to learn different skills and to grow into different ways. I think the other thing is, for a long time, this is an out loud reminder to myself. There have been times in my career where I have felt a little bit like a jack of all trades, a master of none, maybe. And then there are other times in my career where I've been a little more focused. Like right now, I'm very much more focused on trade shows and events, and letting go some of those other pieces of marketing that some of my team members are taking on, right? Whereas before I wore sort of all those hats. And so there are positives to both sides. There are growth opportunities to both sides, and just being open and flexible for those changes over time, because that's the fun of life anyways. Your personal life changes, you may get married or have children or make those kinds of changes, but your professional life can also have different, everything is not always one direction, right? There's branches.
Well said. And in your case, you're living proof that it is a journey, both, within a company or within a specific role, but geographically, as you've had to move quite a bit and continue to do so, for various events and serving on committees. But I can understand why your personal travels may not be the highest of priorities if you're getting live music every night and you have your furry friend who is actually nowhere to be found right now, but he was with us when we first began.
Yes, I do have 3 cats. And usually they are the star of the show whenever I'm on camera, right? So whether it's a Zoom meeting or a Teams meeting. So lots of people that I interact with are like, Ann, where are the cats? Can you bring them back? I did adopt three kittens, rescue kittens. They're from the same litter right before the pandemic. And they do like to climb things. Oftentimes this wall behind me, they climb. So they make lots of scenes. And when we started this video, I had one on my desk. But yes, we are alone at the moment. Oh, actually, they're asleep, but I'm on blur.
Well,
I do recommend animals. I definitely am an animal lover. I know not everybody is, but I love animals. I like dogs as well, but I do travel a lot. So my husband has not exactly said yes to the dog. I don't think he wants the extra responsibility. So it's fine. We have 3 cats and we have plenty to keep us busy with.
I can imagine. What are their names?
Oh, of course you would ask me that. I named them Coco, Chanel, and Versace. I have 2 girls and 1 boy. I wanted, yeah, we went on names for a long time. And I know Coco Chanel is 1 person. I named 2 cats that. It's okay. They don't know the difference. But Versace, he's the boy. I say he likes to be booted and suited because he constantly wants to be brushed and pet and groomed. Whereas the girls are kind of go with the flow. So he's always on my lap for the most part.
Those are hard to forget names, to say the very least. I was going to conclude, with rapid fire, 3 rapid fire questions that are on the lighter side. One was cats or dogs, and we have already established that, even though you are and your husband are considering a dog. But the other 3 would be coffee or tea.
Coca-Cola.
Okay. I like that curveball.
It's what's in my cup right now. I'm to be sponsored by Coca-Cola.
Shameless plug, nothing wrong with that. Paperback books, books on tablets, or audiobooks?
Hardback. Sorry to be complicated. Yep. I am a subscriber of called Book of the Month, bookofthemonth.com. And it's sort of a curated list of books each month that I get to pick from, and they come to me in hardback. I think they now have an audio option, but my goal is to get myself off a screen. I do so much of my work on screens that the book I like the hardback book. I also like to carry it on the plane with me when I'm traveling. So I just completed a book on my flight home from NAA. It was a thriller. That was my 18th book this year, so I'm on a good streak. But I don't really read educational books as much. Most of them are entertainment. So, yeah, hardback.
And I should have added that as an option there, but I'm with you to give our eyes a break from screens. I prefer hard copy. And then lastly, because of your love for live music, your favorite concert, aside from seeing your husband perform?
Oh, gosh. I have seen quite a few good shows. I really Cincinnati has a nice concert venue down on the river that's outside, and it's just nice to sit outside at the river. So any show sometimes is a good show. Right now, one of the bands that I'm constantly trying to chase to see if we can get in to see is called Snarky Puppy. So it's jazz. Look them up. Sometimes I wear their t-shirt and people are like, what the heck is that? It's like a puppy with headphones on. But yeah, I just a little bit about jazz is, when I usually say jazz, people think of the greats, right? Which I do love. And we listen to a lot of, my husband being a guitar player, Pat Metheny and Wes Montgomery, we're from Indiana, for crying out loud, are definitely people we listen to regularly. But Snarky Puppy is fresh, hip. Check them out. There you go.
Duly noted. Well, thank you again. And it was great, finally getting to know you after 10 plus years since I've been in the industry. So I really appreciate your time.
Yes, maybe next time we'll flip, but I'll ask you the questions.
Right. If Melissa and James will have us, this was a unique opportunity, and I'm grateful to fill in for her. But thanks again.
Absolutely.
Hope to see you soon.